Mwangi wanted to shame his ex-wife by inviting her to his big wedding. He thought she would come looking sad and broken. But when Achieng arrived in a shiny black Toyota Land Cruiser V8 with 3 little boys holding her hands, everyone froze. The same woman he once called barren now had triplets. And that was just the beginning. Once upon a time, in the lakeside city of Kisumu, there lived a man named Mwangi. This is not just a story of wealth and pride, but also one of pain, healing, and the justice of God. Tonight, as you listen, picture the streets of Kisumu, the boda bodas rushing by, the matatus painted with loud slogans and music booming, the scent of fresh tilapia frying by the lake, and the voices of people who know that children are blessings beyond measure. This is the story of Achieng. In Kisumu, near the waters of Lake Victoria, lived Mwangi. Mwangi was wealthy. He drove a sleek Mercedes that roared down Oginga Odinga Street. He wore suits stitched in Nairobi's finest shops in Westlands. He was known in Kisumu clubs, sipping his Tusker, surrounded by friends who cheered his arrogance. But behind his laughter was a wound he carried every day. His wife, Achieng, had given him no children. Achieng was a Luo woman from Siaya, beautiful, soft-spoken, and loyal. She cooked tilapia stew with ugali and sukuma wiki for her husband. She brewed hot chai with mandazi for visitors. She prayed at night for her home. Yet every month her hope rose, and every month it broke. In Kenya, children are celebrated with ululations, songs, goats gifted by relatives, and laughter that fills compounds. But Achieng carried the silence of barrenness, and Mwangi's mother never stopped reminding him. "Hey, Mwangi," she would scold on the phone. 7 years married and not even one child? What will people in Muranga say? Are we cursed? This woman is a curse. And Mwangi, caught between his pride and his mother's pressure, began to despise Achieng. One evening, in their Milimani estate home, the storm finally broke. Mwangi threw his car keys on the glass table. 7 years, Achieng. 7 years. Do you want me to die without an heir? Achieng's voice trembled.
Mwangi, we can still hope. Let's see a doctor together. But Mwangi sneered. You think I'm the problem? Do you know what men in Kisumu whisper at the lakeside? They laugh at me. They mock me. And you dare suggest it is me? Her tears flowed. But Mwangi, we made vows before God, for better, for worse. Mwangi's eyes hardened. You are nothing without children. Tomorrow I will call my lawyer. Pack your things. You are no longer my wife. At dawn, Achieng left. She had once filled that house with chapati frying in the pan, with her laughter during chama meetings, with her whispered prayers. Now, with only a small bag, she walked alone toward Kondele. The matatus honked, painted with faces of musicians. Boda boda riders weaved around her. But nobody knew the woman walking with tears down her cheeks had just lost her home. She boarded a matatu to Nairobi. The journey was long, dust rising as they passed Kericho's green tea plantations and Nakuru's flamingo-filled lake. When she reached Umoja Estate, she knocked on her friend Wanjiru's iron sheet door. Achieng! Wanjiru gasped. What happened? Achieng broke down. He threw me out. He called me barren. Wanjiru hugged her tight. Not in my house. You will not sleep in the streets. You will find peace here. And so, Achieng began again. Weeks turned into months. Achieng lived in Wanjiru's one-bedroom flat in Umoja, Nairobi. She would sit by the window, staring at the noisy matatus painted with "Only God can judge me," or "Usiende Mbali." Children played football in the dusty estate grounds. and her heart ached. One evening, Wanjiru placed a cup of steaming chai in her hand. "My sister," she said softly, "have you ever tested yourself? What if the problem was never you?" Achieng's eyes widened. Mwangi would never agree to be tested. He always said it was me. The next morning, Wanjiru insisted. They went to Kenyatta National Hospital. The doctor ordered blood work, scans, and tests. Days later, the results came. The doctor smiled gently. "Madam Achieng, there is nothing wrong with you. Your womb is fine. You are healthy. If there is a problem, it may be from your husband." Achieng's tears rolled down her face. "All these years, I prayed, I fasted, I hated myself, and it was not me." Wanjiru embraced her tightly. "You are not barren. You are a diamond that a fool threw away." With that truth, Achieng began to rebuild. She returned to Kisumu. Near the busy bus park, she rented a small kiosk. At dawn, she fried tilapia, boiled omena, rolled chapatis, and served hot ugali with sukuma. The air was filled with the aroma of fish stew. Boda riders, teachers, and bankers queued for her food. Soon, she was known as Mama Ugali. One afternoon, a man approached her stand. He wore a crisp white shirt, his eyes kind. "Your fish is the best in Kisumu," he said warmly. His name was Otieno, an accountant. He returned the next day, and the day after that. Sometimes he brought unga, sometimes sukuma, just to support her. Slowly, their friendship grew. By the lakeside one evening, as the sun melted into the water, Otieno spoke. "Achieng, you are a woman of strength. I do not care about your past. I want to walk with you, not for what you give me, but for who you are." Achieng's heart swelled. They married in a small church in Kisumu. There were no limousines, no grand hotels, but there was dancing, drumming, and neighbors ululating as they brought sugar, rice, and maize as gifts. For the first time in many years, Achieng felt at peace. Months later, Achieng discovered she was pregnant. She held the test kit in her trembling hands, unable to speak. Otieno lifted her high and spun her around their small living room. "Baba Mungu ni mwaminifu! God is faithful!" he shouted. The pregnancy was not easy. Morning sickness, fatigue, and worry followed her. But with Otieno's love and Wanjiru's prayers from Nairobi, she carried it to term. And then, at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching Hospital, 3 cries filled the air. Triplets. The very woman Mwangi had mocked as barren now carried 3 sons in her arms. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "My God, you turned my shame into glory." Meanwhile, Mwangi was busy planning his grand wedding in Nairobi. He had fallen for Njeri, a glamorous fashion designer from Mombasa. To show the world he had moved on, he planned a wedding so big that Nairobi would not forget. Safari Park Hotel was booked. Benga musicians were hired. Convoys of Land Cruisers and Mercedes-Benzes were ordered. Politicians, socialites, and businessmen filled the guest list. And to crown his arrogance, Mwangi sent Achieng a golden invitation card. Front row. He imagined her coming, broken, ashamed, sitting quietly as he married his new queen. But destiny had another plan. The big day arrived. Nairobi was buzzing. Matatus along Thika Road slowed down to watch the convoys. Boda Boda riders stopped at the Safari Park Hotel gates, craning their necks to see the luxury cars. Inside, cameras flashed as guests in glittering outfits took their seats. Mwangi stood tall at the altar, his agbada shining white with golden embroidery. He smiled proudly, chest out, his mind whispering, "Today everyone will know I have moved on." Then, it happened. A black Toyota Land Cruiser V8 pulled up at the entrance. The driver stepped out, opened the back door slowly. Out came Achieng. She wore a beautiful kitenge gown, her head wrapped in ankara. Her steps were calm, her face glowing like sunrise. And holding each of her hands were three little boys, dressed in white shirts and yellow bow ties. The hall froze. Gasps, whispers, phones lifted into the air. "Isn't that Mwangi's ex-wife? But she has children. Triplets!" The whispers spread like fire in dry grass. Mwangi's smile vanished. His bride, Njeri, stiffened. Her eyes narrowed. "Who is that woman?" she whispered sharply. Mwangi could not speak. Njeri turned to him, her voice rising. "Is that your ex-wife? And those children, are they hers?" Mwangi stammered. I thought she could not." Njeri's voice cut like a knife. "You told me she was barren. You mocked her. You divorced her because of this. And now, she comes here with 3 sons." The guests leaned forward, eager, shocked, whispering louder. Mwangi's tongue felt heavy. He could not form words. But Njeri, in her bridal gown worth more than some people's houses, pulled off her veil. Her voice shook with rage. "I cannot marry a liar. Not today. Not ever."
She dropped her bouquet at the altar and walked out. Gasps echoed across the hall. Mwangi stood frozen. All eyes turned to him, and then to Achieng, who had quietly taken her seat in the front row, her boys nestled against her arms. She had not come to fight. She had come to be seen. News spread within hours. By the time the sun set, videos were already viral on WhatsApp and TikTok. In matatus across Nairobi, people whispered. In Kisumu, Boda Boda riders laughed at the story. In Eldoret, men shook their heads over evening tea. And in Muranga, Mama Mwangi sighed, "We wronged that woman. We mocked her." Now the truth has come out. Mwangi's empire began to crack. Business partners distanced themselves. Investors pulled out. Friends stopped answering his calls. The man who once strutted in pride now sat in silence in his Runda mansion. Meanwhile, Achieng's life blossomed. Her restaurant in Kisumu grew, attracting travelers from far and wide. She opened a branch in Nairobi, and people queued for her famous tilapia and ugali. Otieno stood proudly by her side, not only as a husband but as her biggest supporter. Their 3 boys filled their home with laughter. They played football in the compound, dribbling a worn-out ball, pretending to be Olunga, scoring goals for Harambee Stars. They ran through the house with toy Probox cars, giggling. Every evening, as Achieng tucked them into bed, she whispered, "You are my miracles. Never let anyone's words define you. Only God has the final say." And so, from Nairobi to Kisumu, from Mombasa to Eldoret, the story of Achieng spread. People said, "Never let pride blind you, for pride destroys what love has built. Never despise another, for what seems barren today may overflow tomorrow." Mwangi learned too late, but Achieng, the woman once mocked as barren, became a living testimony that God's timing is perfect. And that, my friends, is the tale of Achieng. The woman Mwangi tried to humiliate, but who walked in dignity, vindicated by truth, by love, and by God's hand. The end.